Hello, and welcome to ISO Buckets. I'm your host, Nate Friesen. So this is my first podcast. I'm kind of starting it just as a way to kind of get my thoughts out there about the NBA. But I think it'll serve as kind of a good recap of the biggest games and storylines that are going on in and around the NBA. So if that's something you're interested, thank you for downloading and listening to the show. If you'd like to be notified when a new episode drops, feel free to follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, at ISOBuckets. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Yeah. So with that being said, I think today, to start off the first show, I'm going to be talking about a few things, starting with the Milwaukee Bucks' absolute domination of the NBA. The Utah Jazz as well, who seem to somewhat be free falling at the moment, and some recent unfortunate injuries that have taken place over the last week or so. Also, much more, so stay tuned for that. But as I mentioned, let's start with the Bucks. So the Bucks so far this season have been the best team in the league, and quite frankly, it's not even close. I mean, if you want to make a case for the Lakers, I'd entertain that, but honestly, the Bucks are just, they're having an absolutely historic season right now. They're the fastest team to clinch a playoff spot in NBA history, and yeah, the season starts earlier now. However, this team is on pace to win 70 games, and that's only been done, I think, 4 times in NBA history. I mean, they're just in unprecedented territory, and it's just really impressive. I mean, the game this past week that the Bucks played against the Raptors, uh, the the Bucks just they looked so much better, and the Raptors, quite frankly, looked scared at times. It was just the Bucks, the way they play, they just they don't let you have anything in the paint, and nothing comes easy. No free throws. They're smart. They don't foul. They just let you take contested threes. Even though they're late contests, they're still contested, and teams fall into this trap like the Raptors did. And I mean, we saw Pascal Siakam, I think, shot 9 threes. Serge Ibaka was 0 for from 3. Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet, terrible games. Um, and while I think it might be a different story with the Raptors if they're fully healthy with Norman Powell and Marc Gasol, it's still, I mean, they have a lot to figure out if they want any chance at beating this Bucks team, and so does the rest of the league, quite frankly. I mean, that Raptors game was also coming off a back-to-back in which the Wizards took the Bucks to overtime, and the Bucks still came out against the second best team in the Eastern Conference and played like the best team in the league that they are. Speaking of that Wizards game, I mean, Chris Middleton just absolutely took over in overtime. Him and Bradley Beal were trading bucket for bucket. It was quite an entertaining game. I mean, Chris Middleton has looked like a genuine superstar since coming back from the All-Star break, which I don't think we've really ever been able to say about Chris Middleton. But I mean, 40 against the Wizards in overtime, and then against the Raptors, I mean, he looked like a legit second star next to Giannis. I mean, the Raptors were throwing doubles at not only Giannis, but they were throwing doubles at Middleton, which I think speaks a lot to how teams respect his game. Um, he's just capable of getting a bucket anywhere on the floor. Like 3-pointers, I mean, he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league, up above 45%. His mid range is absolutely deadly. He can get to the bucket whenever he wants. Free throws in the 80s, maybe even 90%. Yeah, I think he's on pace for 50, 40, 90 season, which obviously has only been done by a handful of guys. And then lastly, earlier in the week, the Bucks also just absolutely dominated the Sixers, which they've done multiple times this season, with the exception of the Christmas Day game. But I mean, the Bucks are just steamrolling teams, including teams like the Sixers. And I know the Sixers were without Simmons, and we'll get to that a bit later. But Embiid was playing, and he just seems as though he struggles against this Bucks team that's just so long and athletic. Um, I mean, Brook Lopez, Robin Lopez, Giannis Antetokounmpo clogging the lane is just, it's tough to score in there with so many long arms. And I mean, you can see it. Embiid gets frustrated. He starts taking more threes and settling for contested mid-range and forcing up shots, trying to draw the foul and get to the free throw line, and it just doesn't go well. I mean, I do think that this kind of speaks more so to Embiid rather than the Bucks. I mean, we saw this week also Embiid have a career high 49 points against the Atlanta Hawks, which is great, but it's also the Atlanta Hawks. And I mean, he was being guarded by 6'8" on a good day, Dwayne Dedman and Bruno Fernando, who's a rookie. And I mean, yeah, we've seen Embiid, like, he has dominating performances against teams like that, but then he struggles when it's time to shine against teams like the Bucks. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good segue to move on to the Sixers. As I mentioned, Simmons out against the Bucks, and he's now out with a back injury indefinitely. This is just a really tough blow for the Sixers, who are already having a pretty rough season just all around. And I mean, Simmons, well, yeah, people say, oh, he can't shoot threes, he needs to shoot threes, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's still one of the best defensive players in the league, probably was on pace, and still could be on pace to be first team all defense. His ability to get to the basket whenever he wants is one of the best in the league. And his playmaking, obviously, I mean, I think he's top 5 in the league in assists, which, yeah, that's obviously amazing. So, for all the things Simmons doesn't do, there's so much more that he does do, and this Sixers team is really going to miss that. On top of that, I mean, Embiid now injured his shoulder against the Cavs on, I believe it was Wednesday night. Just kind of a fluke injury, and he's going to be out at least a week, which, I mean, this doesn't bode well for the Sixers' chances of figuring out kind of these chemistry issues they've had this season. Yeah, I don't know. I guess these injuries might mean more opportunity for guys like Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson, Al Horford to kind of figure out what their role is on this team and how they can get their buckets within the flow of the offense, stuff like that. But I mean, it's not ideal when you're trying to figure out lineups and rotations heading into the postseason. So, I mean, the Sixers, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, they're probably somewhat locked into the 4-5 seed. Maybe they slip down to 6. If that happens, there's absolutely no chance that they beat the Celtics, who are likely to be the 3 seed in the first round. I mean, even if they hang on and they stay in the 4-5 range, they're probably going to have to play the Heat, and if they're on the road against the Heat, there's absolutely no chance. They've showed that they suck. They flat out suck on the road. And even if they get home court advantage against the Heat in the first round, they end up winning. That just means they have to face the Bucks in round 2, and I don't see that happening at all. I mean, quite frankly, at this point, that's probably a sweep for the Bucks. I mean, the Sixers might steal a game, but they've just been a mess this season, and we've seen this happen to teams where it's just kind of, you just can't figure it out. Whether it's chemistry issues, whether it's just the roster doesn't fit, the coach. I mean, it could be a combination of the three. The Sixers, going into this offseason, are going to have to make some changes, whether that's trading, not even Simmons and Embiid. I know everyone wants to split them up, and I certainly don't think that's a bad idea. But I mean, even trading a guy like Tobias Harris, who, yeah, his contract is pretty huge, but he's still a really talented player. Trading a guy like Al Horford, who's a solid veteran, also on a high contract. Maybe trading a guy like Josh Richardson, who's on a pretty solid contract. Yeah, I don't know, the Sixers, if they don't make a trade, I mean, and if they don't make it out of the first round, Brett Brown's probably gone. I don't see them kind of shuffling around the front office. I mean, Elton Brand's only been there for like about a year now, so I think he deserves a little bit more time. He has put together a pretty talented roster. While they're not very deep, they are pretty talented, so I don't really think it's too much on him. I think it's more so on the players to kind of figure out what they're doing together, and also on Brett Brown to help them kind of figure out what's best for them. And I kind of think we saw right before the All-Star break with them moving Al Horford to the bench, that might have been with Korkmaz going into the starting lineup, that might have been uh, ideal for them. I mean, Al Horford would be a super six man, and then coming off the bench. But now we can't really see that because of these injuries to Simmons and Embiid. So, yeah, it's just not ideal for the Sixers trying to figure out their ideal rotations heading into the postseason. And maybe they'll figure it out, but I'm not hopeful. Um, I guess another team now that's having difficulties figuring out their rotation is the Utah Jazz. So, the Utah Jazz the other day put out a report for some reason saying that um, they're going to send Mike Conley back to the bench, and that Joe Ingles and Bojan Bogdanovic, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Royce O'Neal would be the starters. Um, sure, cool. I mean, Conley, again, similar to Horford, super six man. Um, but then, I mean, not even like an hour later, the Jazz report that no, it's not Conley that's going to the bench, it's Joe Ingles that's going to the bench. And I mean, cool. Like, I don't exactly know why this was even like released. Like, I remember getting like these two notifications, and I'm like, why? Like, why? No one, no one really notifies you of like rotation changes. That seems like a minor change that just happens. The coach just does it on a game to game basis. Um, so it seems like there's some bigger issues there in Utah. Um, I mean, not to mention they're on a 4-game losing streak, including losses to the Spurs, the Rockets, the Suns, and the Celtics. I mean, Celtics and Rockets, sure, tough losses. They match up pretty poorly against those teams, especially because they can go small and kind of get Rudy Gobert on switches and isolate him, and he has a tough time hanging with guys like Westbrook and Kemba, and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and James Harden, etc. But losing to the Spurs and the Suns after the All-Star break, after a tough loss to Houston, that's just inexcusable. I mean, the Jazz, they need to just kind of figure it out. I mean, those are games that you have to win going down the stretch of the season when you're fighting for home court advantage in a possible series against Houston. I mean, you're going to need every possible advantage you can get. And I mean, the Jazz looked like, for a bit there, that they were maybe going to fight and possibly get up to the 3 seed in the West. But that looks incredibly unlikely now. And with the way the OKC Thunder are playing right now, it's very likely the Jazz could drop all the way down to 6, and we could see the Thunder even climb up to take that number 5 seed if the Jazz don't figure it out sometime soon. But fortunately for the Jazz, they have a fairly easy schedule coming up. The next 3 games against the Wizards, the Cavs, and the Knicks. I mean, these games are absolutely must win. If they must win all of them, and if they don't, that's going to be incredibly disappointing. This is a good chance for them to get back on track. And they really need to solidify some sort of rotation going down the stretch this season if they want any chance in a first or a second round series to just kind of make some progress. I mean, we've seen them make it to the second round, look pretty good in the playoffs, but it just seems like they're not improving. I mean, they made some great moves, we thought, for Bojan Bogdanovic, for Mike Conley, obviously, and, well, they're good moves on the surface. I mean, they're not really producing any results. I mean, the Jazz are no better than they were last year or the year before. So this is just something that they're going to have to figure out over the next 25 games or so. And if they can't, there might be some changes there in Utah. I don't know exactly what that would be. I don't see them firing Quinn Snyder, although it's not impossible. It seems like the coach is always the first to go in situations like this. But they also just don't really have enough talent. I think they kind of thought with Donovan Mitchell as their number one, Rudy Gobert as their number two, they kind of needed a third star. But I don't know. Mike Conley's obviously not that anymore. He's had a pretty tough season. But I also don't think Donovan Mitchell has looked like a legitimate number one option. I mean, he's quite inconsistent. He'll have games. I mean, he'll literally have a game, goes for 30, and just torches a team. And then the next game, he's like 2 for 15 and has like 11 points. And it's like, are these two different people? Like, I mean, Donovan Mitchell is just, like, he's a great player, but I'm not sure if he's a legit number one. I mean, he gets the Dwayne Wade comparison a lot of times, and it kind of seems right now like the Jazz kind of need that LeBron James to come in, like LeBron did for the Heat, with Wade and Bosh. I mean, we got Mitchell and Gobert, similar comparisons. If the Jazz are able, and I know it's easier said than done to kind of get a number one in to go with those and have Mitchell slide down to the number two option. Gobert's kind of the number three guy. I think that obviously would be ideal. I mean, I don't exactly see that happening just because there's only so many LeBron Jameses out there. I mean, obviously there's only one LeBron. And yeah, I mean, they're not going to get a big name free agent very likely. That's just, I mean, it's Utah. They've historically not got a lot of big free agents, unfortunately. So it's going to have to probably come in a trade, whether they're trading Mike Conley again, because he's got the contract, but I mean, it would have to be somewhat of a salary dump. I don't know. It's a tough situation there in Utah. I mean, it seems like they're going to be perpetually locked into 3, 4, 5, 6 seed in the West unless they make a significant move in the next year or two. I mentioned the Ben and Joel Embiid injuries just a bit earlier. However, there are some other guys that are unfortunately set to miss an extended period of time. Most notably, Jeremy Lamb, who suffered a torn ACL, a torn lateral meniscus, and a fractured lateral femoral condyle. I'm quite frankly not exactly sure what the lateral femoral condyle is. I know it's in the knee somewhere. But, I mean, this is just an absolutely devastating injury for Jeremy Lamb. I mean, he's had a great season this year for the Pacers, and they've needed it from him with the absence of Victor Oladipo and him kind of struggling to figure it out as he's coming back from injury. And, I mean, Lamb's an awesome rotation guy, and he would have been solid to help the Pacers in the first round against possibly a matchup against either the Heat or Sixers or Celtics. And yeah, it's just a tough blow. I mean, he's probably gonna miss all of next season too, which really sucks. I mean, I'm kind of glad that Jeremy Lamb was able to get a contract this summer, and so that he'll be able to come back to the Pacers, rehab with the team, kind of figure it out, and hopefully he can come back in the 2021-2022 season like he never left. I mean, that's tough. It's a tough injury to come back from. But, I mean, we've seen guys come back from ACLs, and we've seen guys come back from the meniscus. And be 90, 95, even 100% of what they were before. So let's hope it's a similar result for Jeremy Lamb. I mean, it was kind of cool though. I mean, there's been like clips going around of Lamb uh, on the injured leg hitting the free throws, kind of Kobe-esque, which is, I guess, the one kind of cool thing to come out of a pretty tragic injury. Uh, yeah, so wishing the best to Jeremy Lamb. Hopefully he's able to come back better than ever. More unfortunate injuries, though. Kelly Oubre Jr. also supposedly tore his meniscus. He's getting a second opinion on it, though, I believe. But it doesn't look good for Kelly Oubre Jr., who was having, quite frankly, a career year. And so it really sucks that he's going to be out for at least the rest of this year, possibly all or most of next year, similar to Lamb. Yeah, it just sucks. I mean, meniscus is not a fun injury, and the Suns are going to miss him for sure. I guess might have a chance to kind of see what Mikal Bridges has, if he can kind of slide in and fill that role. But still, it sucks for Kelly Oubre and for the Suns. Hopefully, Oubre is able to recover and come back better than ever. But then one final injury. This one, not quite as bad, hopefully. Jalen Brunson potentially tore his labrum in his shoulder. Very likely could miss the rest of the season. This is pretty unfortunate news for the Mavericks. Mavericks are in a pretty good position now to make the playoffs and have like a pretty solid matchup, and they could have a chance to make it into the first round. And I think Brunson is an important part of their rotation. I mean, he's a solid veteran who comes off the bench and is able to run your offense. Similar to a Fred VanVleet kind of guy. Not obviously as good as Fred, but similar to Fred a couple years ago. And yeah, so I mean, it's a tough blow for both Brunson and the Mavs, but hopefully he'll be able to. I believe he's getting surgery in the off season, so hopefully he'll be able to have a speedy recovery and be ready to go next season. Last guy who's gonna miss an extended period of time is Malik Monk. There's a report the other day from the NBA saying that Malik Monk violated the NBA's anti-drug policy, and he's out indefinitely, which is never good. When you see the indefinitely beside a suspension, that could mean a week, 5 games, 10 games, 25 games, like the Ayton and the John Collins suspensions we saw earlier this season. They also didn't say what it was for. I mean, performance-enhancing drugs, or if it was just like weed or something. Like, I don't know. I don't want to speculate. But yeah, it sucks. I mean, Malik Monk was having a pretty solid season, looking like a legit NBA player. I think he was kind of carving out somewhat of like a six-man role behind Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier. Yeah, and it sucks that he's going to be out for literally who knows how long. Let's hope it's not too long and that he can kind of figure it out with the league. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get Malik Monk back soon. Some other quick topics I just kind of want to run through. First is the Houston Rockets. So the Rockets have been experimenting with this sort of super small ball lineup where they go without a center. They put PJ Tucker at the center, Robert Covington at the 4, something like Harden at the 3, Gordon at the 2, and Westbrook at the 1. And I mean, it's been working. I mean, they have looked like a legitimate contender in the last couple weeks, in my opinion. I mean, this this small ball lineup has absolutely unlocked Russell Westbrook, and I know everyone's been saying it. Oh, this is Russell Westbrook's best season of his career. I disagree with that. I mean, I think his MVP season was his best season of his career, but I mean, I'd entertain the argument that this is obviously his most efficient season of his career, which is good to see because he has historically not been the most efficient player. So it's good to see him kind of, I guess, maturing and making smarter decisions, kind of cutting threes out of his shot diet, and yeah, just like he's just driving to the rim relentlessly against everyone. And I mean, that is tough for the defense to handle. Whoever is matched up with Russ has got to just be terrified that every single time down this absolute beast of a man is just sprinting at you and sprinting at you and sprinting at you, and just he's getting layup after layup after layup. I mean, that's terrifying. And he's actually somewhat kind of figuring out his free throws again too. He kind of had a weird blip the last like year and a half where he was just struggling from the free throw line. But he's kind of figuring that out now too, which is good to see. So hopefully this Rockets team can actually continue to look good and improve with this super small ball lineup. I think they're going to cause problems for whoever they face in the playoffs. I mean, they could, if they face the Jazz in the first round, they've matched up well against the Jazz, and they could definitely win that, and they could put up a fight in a second round series against like the Lakers or the Clippers. So yeah, I mean, I would be really excited to see a Lakers Rockets second round, see how the Lakers kind of match up. I mean, I think that would probably take Howard and JaVale McGee pretty much out of it. AD would be their permanent center for the most part in that kind of series, but I mean, it's all speculation. So yeah, I mean, I'd be really excited to see a series like that come the second round of the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, the race for the 8th seed in the West is going to be fun. I mean, it's already fun. The Grizzlies, the Pelicans, the Blazers, and I guess even the Spurs, even though they're somewhat of a distant fourth contender in this race for the 8th seed. But this is going to be a battle. I mean, the Grizzlies have maintained this spot for a couple months now, and they're still holding strong, 28-30. The Blazers in 9th at 26-34. Pelicans 10th, 25-33, and the Spurs in 11th at 24-33. And I mean, even the Kings and the Suns are relatively in it. I mean, not so much the Suns. They're 4.5 games out, but the Kings are 4 games out. So I mean, they're in play. I mean, I personally think that the Pelicans are gonna be the ones to take the 8th seed and make it into the playoffs, which obviously I think everyone wants. I mean, Zion versus LeBron, Zion versus AD even in the playoffs is just going to be one of the most entertaining series, and in the first round, and that's a 1 versus 8, which I mean, there's not much more you can ask for in a 1v8 series. I mean, the Grizzlies literally have the most difficult schedule left in the league. They have matchups against the Bucks, Lakers, Raptors, Celtics. Yeah, and the Pelicans have the second easiest schedule. And, I mean, the Blazers, too, they have the third easiest schedule. But with Damian Lillard out, I mean, it's going to be tough for them. They had a tough game last night against the Pacers. Miles Turner hit like a super clutch deep 3 to kind of seal the game against the Blazers after kind of a late surge from CJ McCollum. And yeah, losses like that are not going to bode well for the Blazers going down the stretch. So I personally think the Pelicans are going to make it, but it's going to be fun to watch the last 20 or so games to see how the Grizzlies play with the Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark injuries, how John Morant can deal with the tough schedule playing the Bucks and Lakers and Raptors on multiple occasions. Yeah, so I mean, let's just hope for an entertaining race going into the final stretch of the season. Maybe we can even get somewhat of a playoff like we did a couple years ago with the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. Um, Unlikely, but I mean that you can always hope. Um, yeah. So one last thing, I guess speaking of the Timberwolves, um, Malik Beasley. I mean, this guy is balling since the trade to the Timberwolves, averaging 22 points, 2 assists, 6 rebounds on 42% shooting from three. Malik Beasley has looked really good, and considering that the Timberwolves traded um, pretty much nothing for Malik Beasley, that's pretty good. I mean, Malik Beasley in a backcourt with D'Angelo Russell, with Karl Anthony Towns up front, um, still absolutely no defense being played. Malik Beasley is like a solid defender. He's a good defender. Um, but they're going to need to get like a small forward and a power forward to kind of anchor their defense, which I think they can do. Ironically, a guy like Draymond Green would probably be like perfect on this Minnesota Timberwolves team, kind of like an off-ball playmaker, screener, and then defensively just kind of anchoring that defense. Yeah, so they can kind of, I know it's Draymond Green's kind of one of a kind, but if they can get kind of like a 3-4 that can lock up on the defensive end and just kind of be like a fourth offensive option with some like playmaking, some shooting, that would be ideal for them. Another guy who's been just getting buckets with ease the last few games is Bradley Beal. I'm sure all of you know Bradley Beal, 53 points against the Bulls, and then followed that up with 55 points against the Bucks. I mean, 50 points alone is like an impressive feat. I mean, only a handful of guys are in the league are able to even go for 50. And Bradley Beal he seems like he's kind of on like a revenge tour right now. He seems like genuinely mad that he did not get voted into the All-Star game. And, I mean, I guess good for him. Just kind of going out there and balling. It's really sucks seeing him on this garbage Wizards team just putting up 50s back-to-back and also back-to-back losses. I mean, that sucks for Bradley Beal. There was kind of like a meme going around of him sitting on the bench after scoring 50, and like he just looked like pissed. Like he just scored 50 points and his team is like losing again. And that's kind of been the story for the Wizards this year. I mean, Bradley Beal putting up numbers every single night, and the Wizards losing almost every single night. They are kind of in, I guess, a playoff race in the East. I mean, it's pretty unlikely unless the Nets or Magic really fall off down the stretch. But yeah, tough season for the Wizards. But I mean, at least Bradley Beal's balling out. And then last guy, or actually second last guy, who's just been really playing well lately is Kobe White, rookie for the Chicago Bulls. Has scored 30 points in each of his last 3 games. 33 against the Wizards, 33 against the Suns, and then 35 against the Thunder. Kobe White he's been having a sneaky good rookie season. I mean, as kind of like a 6-man, just like coming off, just like explosive scorer. Not like the greatest playmaker, not the greatest defender. He's solid in both respects, but just a walking bucket. Like he's just able to score at will. He somewhat has like kind of like a Russell Westbrook type game where he just kind of is relentless and coming at you scoring, and he's just kind of like a little bit crazy in the way he plays. Like he just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. And I mean, yeah, it's been pretty good to see from Kobe White. I mean, he could be like a solid player for the Bulls in the future. To go along with Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., Otto Porter. Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, it seems like the Bulls just have so many like good young players, but they're lacking like one great young player. I don't know if Kobe White can be that great young player, but he's looked pretty awesome this season, and especially in the last week or so. Last kind of guy I want to give a quick shout out to that's been playing really awesome lately. I know everyone's been talking about him, but it's Jason Tatum. I mean, he's been talked a lot about over the last week or so with the performance against the Clippers, performance against the Lakers in a close game, even against the Jazz the other night. Tatum has looked like an All-NBA player since coming out of the All-Star break, quite frankly, and I'm not sure he'll make the All-NBA teams. There's just so much depth at the wing position. But Tatum he's impressive. Along with Jaylen Brown and Gordon Hayward, who's off and on, and Kemba Walker, who's been out. But Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I know they get this comparison a lot, but the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard comparison, I mean, I don't think that's completely far-fetched anymore. Jason Tatum is like a legitimate two-way beast. And, I mean, yeah, I mentioned he's possibly in the running for All-NBA. He's also in the running for all defensive teams. Same with Jaylen Brown. I mean, these guys are two of the best defensive wings in the league, and they're both on the same team. I mean, they're just a force on both ends of the ball, and it's tough because not many teams have multiple 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" wings that they can throw at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to stop them on any given night, and one of them is going to get their numbers, and both of them are going to lock up your best players on the other side. I mean, it's tough to deal with those guys. All right, the last kind of thing I want to do on every show is just kind of talk about like a random topic. So, I mean, if anyone's listening, and you have an idea for like a random topic or something, feel free to leave a comment or leave a review with kind of a suggestion, saying like a random topic that you think I should talk about in kind of this last segment of every show. But this week, I'm going to be talking about this video that the Boston Celtics shared on their Twitter this week. So it's just a quick video. I think it was like a minute and a half, 2 minutes of them asking a lot of the Celtics players the infamous "Does pineapple belong on pizza?" question. And some of the players said yes, notably Jaylen Brown. Some players said no, notably Grant Williams. But I just want to present my opinion on the matter. I know it's kind of a controversial topic for the last couple of years or so, but here's my take. Pineapple on pizza is absolutely delicious, and if you disagree, if you say you do not like pineapple on pizza, you have either A, never tried it, B, have bad taste, or C, you are just trying to be that weird guy that like is different from everyone, or you're like trying to like make people mad. As you can see, I'm like a little bit mad about that people actually think that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza. I mean, Hawaiian pizza, pineapple, ham, bacon, cheese. I mean, that is literally like a top 5 classic pizza. I mean, pepperoni, cheese, meat lovers, deluxe, Hawaiian. That's like top 5. Like those are just like the OGs of pizza. I mean, I don't see how someone can say that pineapple doesn't belong on pizza when it's one of like the staples that every pizza place has. I mean, you walk into Domino's, and they say, you say Hawaiian. Like, they're not going to be like, oh no, we don't have pineapple, because that doesn't go on pizza. Like, that doesn't happen. Pineapple belongs on pizza. End of discussion. Alright. On that controversial note, thanks for listening. If you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts about the NBA, you can head over to Fansided and check out my most recent article titled 5 Reasons Why the Raptors Are Actually Better Without Kawhi Leonard. Again, another controversial topic. I guess that's kind of my thing. But yeah, controversy is fun. So go and give that a read. Thanks again for tuning in to ISO Buckets. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff. I would really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you next week.